Hi, welcome back to Manohar Academy. In this lesson, we are going to learn about a very important concept called Java constructors. As I said, this is a very important lesson, so please make sure you pay enough attention to this class. Okay, before we dive into constructors, let's see what we have done so far. We have created a class, and after that we created a couple of objects. Then we have seen how to invoke the methods on these particular objects. Then we have looked at a principle called encapsulation, and then we converted all our members or member fields as private. And then to access these fields, we have created some getters and setters. After that, we looked at the principle called dry, which stands for don't repeat yourself. Then we have seen a small method, or some small methods can help you to avoid code duplication or to avoid copy paste, because copy paste is very costly. It is going to be very difficult to maintain a code that has the code duplicated everywhere. So we have to follow the dry principle. Then we have seen a particular method, that is toString, which is inherited, but we have modified its behavior by implementing the toString in this particular class. Okay, that is what we have done so far. In this class, we are going to talk about constructors. Okay. If you see here, we have a method called leap year, is leap year, and it can be invoked on this particular object. Now, if you see here, the is leap year and the expression that we have written after the keyword new, they have something in common. That is, they have a name or identifier followed by curly braces, because both are methods. Okay, we know that is leap year is a method, but till now we don't know that myDate is a kind of method. But they have a very significant difference. What is the difference? The difference is this particular method is leap year, it can be only invoked on a particular object or any object, but it can't be called along with the new keyword. And this particular expression, which is having the class name in its name, can only be called along with the new keyword. But nonetheless, both are looking like methods and both are methods. One is a special kind of method, but other is a normal method. Okay, if it is a method, it has to be present somewhere. If it is a method, someone has to write it, right? So without writing the method, it can't come from somewhere. Is it true? No, it is not true. We know that we did not write this method, but someone must have written this method for us. Who is that? That should be the compiler. The Java compiler, when compiles this particular method, it sees that this class doesn't have any constructor. Okay, so what is constructor? This particular expression. Okay, this particular class doesn't have that constructor, and without constructor, no one can create any objects. So what Java compiler does is, okay, this class is very poor, it doesn't have any constructors. Let me provide a default constructor. Okay, so what it does is it is going to include a constructor, and it is going to have same name as the class name, and it's not going to do anything. Let's make it public. Okay, this is the default constructor the compiler is going to create for us, and that is the same constructor that we are calling here. Okay, so what is the role of constructor? To create the new objects, and it should be always invoked with the keyword new. Okay, so if it is a default constructor, that means there can be other constructors also. That means we can also write our own constructors. And I'm going to write a constructor called myDate. As I said, the constructor name is always going to be same as class name. And here inside this constructor, I'm going to accept 3 arguments or 3 input parameters called year, month, and day. And inside this constructor, I can assign the values that I have received to the instance fields or member fields. So this constructor, okay, it is not a default constructor, but it is a user defined constructor. And we can invoke this constructor similar to the default constructor. So let me invoke that particular constructor here. So I'm going to pass the values So if you see, these are the same values that I am trying to set here. So because I am passing those values to the constructor and constructor in turn setting those values to the member fields, I no longer need to do this. So now if I run this program, we are going to get the same results. See, here you can see that the object, when it is created, the initial values, whatever values we passed, they are being set. So let's do the same thing for remaining two methods also. Not two methods, remaining two objects also. Okay, here I am trying to pass only one parameter, but we don't have any constructor that is going to take only one parameter, one input parameter. So I have to pass the remaining two parameters also. So here we can see that our code base has reduced a lot, and it makes sense to pass the values, whatever initial values we want for the object when we invoke the constructor. So let me run the program again, and we see the same result. Okay, that is about the constructors. One is default constructor and one is user defined constructor. As I said, the compiler previously created this particular default constructor for us, but if we have defined any constructor, then compiler won't automatically generate this for us, because this method already has a constructor. So compiler thinks, okay, user or the developer has already taken care of setting the initial values for this particular object, so I don't need to provide any constructor. So now if we try to invoke that particular default constructor, we are going to get an error. So here we can see that we got an error. As I said previously, when I was passing only one input parameter, I said we can't do that. So similarly, if there is no default constructor either created by us or either created by compiler, then we can't call it. Okay, now if we remove this particular user defined constructor, what happens is Java compiler is going to provide that particular default constructor for us, and here we don't get any error, but because user defined constructor is no longer there, we are going to get errors here. So let's go ahead and create both of the constructors, but this time I'm going to use the IDE to generate the constructor. Similar to getters and setters, similar to toString method, creating constructor is very common. So IDE is going to provide a functionality to create the constructors for us. So I'm going to press Alt Insert, and I am choosing the constructor, and I'm not going to choose any of these fields so that the default constructor will be created. I'm going to press Alt Insert once again, and I'm going to select the constructor. This time I'm going to select all the three fields, and I'm going to generate a default, not a default constructor. I'm going to generate the constructor that can take 3 arguments. So you might have noticed that whenever I am creating the functions like getters and setters or toString, or in this case this particular constructor, IDE is always using something called this, right? This dot here, nothing but this dot here, nothing but the member field, current object member fields. We are going to cover about the keyword this once again, but for now don't get confused, because here the input arguments or input parameters have the same name. So if we write year equal to year, what you are doing is you are accessing the same field. You are reading the value from year and you are assigning the same value to the same variable. Why? Because here when the year variable is defined, it is going to hide this particular member field because of the scope. Okay, so if we have to access this particular member field, there is no other way but to use this keyword. But input parameter is something else, not month but just M. Then I can use month equal to M here, because there is no parameter called month here that can hide this parameter. So whenever the IDE is generating the methods for us, it is going to use the same variable names or the same names for the input parameters, and it is going to distinguish between the input parameter and the field parameter or field fields using the keyword this. Okay, that is okay. Don't get confused. If you are confused, because I'm going to explain that properly in one more in a different lesson. Okay, that is all about this keyword. Okay, we have seen the two constructors. One is default constructor and another is user defined constructor. So let me give you some notes so that you will remember it. Okay, so if there is no constructor in the class, then compiler provides a default constructor. So this is clear, right? That is what has been happening for all the lessons that we have done so far. Then if there is any user defined constructor, then compiler won't provide the default constructor. That also we have seen in this particular lesson. So that is about default constructor. It is provided if there is no other constructor, and it is not provided automatically if there is any user defined constructor. So simple. And coming to constructors themselves, constructor is going to always have the same name as the class name. Okay, that is what distinguishing a constructor from the methods, other member methods. And also constructor definition, that is whatever we are defining here, the constructor definition cannot have any return type. That is because the constructor is always invoked with the keyword new, and it is always going to return a reference type or a reference to the newly created object. And that particular reference, whatever reference this particular expression is returning, we are going to save it in a reference variable. Okay, and as we have seen, constructor will be always called with the new keyword. And also we have seen that in a class there can be more than one constructor, and it is perfectly fine. This is called constructor overloading. We will look at overloading in detail in another class, but for now please remember, a class can have as many constructors as it needs, and also a constructor can call another constructor. That also we are going to see in a different lesson. Okay, for now that is all about constructors. And as I have mentioned a couple of times, there are some other things that we have to cover about constructors, and we will cover them in a different class. For now, this is the notes from this class. Also try these examples, whatever you have seen in this lesson. So we are in a very good position, like we can create classes, we can create objects, we can invoke any methods on the objects. So we have a very good start. Do some practice, then make yourself comfortable, just like what you have done in the first class when you were writing hello world program. You have to write this particular class so many times so that you are very comfortable with the basics, like creating a class, creating an object, and invoking the methods on that particular object. That is all from this class. I hope you have learned something. Last but not least, please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, so that you will get the alerts whenever I upload a new video or whenever I create some new concepts. And also if you are benefited from this video, please make sure you share it with your friends so that they can also watch the video and they can also learn. Also don't forget to like this video. Thank you.